So I have a question to Anselm, Franke, and Dietrich Dietrichson, the exhibition curators of the Whole Earth Catalog exhibition. And having seen the show downstairs with them just now, it becomes quite apparent that being based on a publication or on a series of publications, the exhibition itself seems to be constructed very much like a book or a publication, with the 7 chapters, the scanned images of book pages. Then you have the bibliographic references of books that are exhibited via their covers, images, reproductions, so on and so forth, and lots of text. So I'm just wondering, I'm curious, because I know that at the end of June there's a catalog coming out for the exhibition, which I was fortunate enough to translate some of the essays for. And I'd be really curious to hear a little bit about the concept of the book in relation to the show. Is there elements that they see, or you see, that the book is going to supplement towards the show, or are you going to represent the show itself in the format of a book because it is already so book-like, and maybe as a viewer you're going to have difficulties, or basic difficulties of bringing the time to sit downstairs and read everything, and maybe you want to take that information and be able to have it at home and spend more time with it and go back to it continuously in the future? Or do you have a more conceptual and more experimental approach to the catalog, where if you think that downstairs you created a book or you unfolded the show in terms of a book, do you fold in an exhibition maybe into the covers of a book with that publication that's coming out in a couple of months?
Unlike maybe a lot of curators and critics, I guess particularly, I'm less afraid of exhibitions being close to books, but that's also part of the kind of attempt to find forms to use the exhibition space as a form of narration, and it is never merely text. No, it's exactly about the relation between images and text, in the way they determine the relation between them defines a certain historical life of both images and of ideas. So when you see book covers or books with their cover displayed as objects, then of course this is this is a way of referring to a history of ideas, and with a twinkling of the eye performing a slight little fetish function on the historical object, because also most of these covers are actually aesthetically extremely interesting and are part of an image, because there is no such thing as a thought without an image, and exhibitions are great for exploring this image sphere in which the traffic between the two happens. So the way I would conceive of the relation between exhibition and book is that each has to function according to its own medium. Now, I say a few things about the book in a second, but first the Whole Earth Catalog. The interesting thing in the Whole Earth Catalog by Stuart Brand, which is one of the guiding motives of the exhibition and where we borrow the title from, is that it's a sort of archive of the counterculture and a kind of form of publication that attempted to be a system in itself and not a linear narration or analysis of anything, but rather a kind of mail order catalog of a different kind, which, to quote, would owe everything to the users and nothing to the producers. It's a kind of user orientation and access philosophy that has ever since become extremely important and successful, of course, because it's some basic idea of empowerment to provide tools. Access to tools is the subtitle of this thing. Now, the interesting thing is that you would maybe for those who do not know the catalog, it might almost appear weird that so much in this catalog is about discourse. It's so many books that it's absolutely discursive. Yes, there's also water purifiers, garden shovels, and early IBM calculators or something like that to be listed and reviewed, because it's the format of the short review that is kind of placing these objects or discourses in context and makes them useful for an assumed common goal, which is the unideological reorganization of a democratic capitalist society. At least it is never desired to be explicitly non-capitalistic in the whole Earth catalog, quite the opposite, but this is not in the foreground. Capitalism is basically something bracketed off most of the times. Anyway, to say that there is an assumed common horizon for a discourse, and this common horizon is what we have to unearth today, uncover, reclaim, I think, because it marks the horizon of capitalistic standards of the cultural imaginary today. No? So in a way, I would always attempt to do exhibitions about the cultural imaginaries, and then anything could be part of this. In this particular case, it's because it's an exhibition about an ecological paradigm and the big question mark of what that would mean. It just tells the story of one possible trajectory of dealing with and advertising, proclaiming the consequences of ecology. Hence the kind of thought space that is mapping discourses, and also tries, of course, to make them very, very tangible. That's why music is so crucial in this exhibition. And I think it has very, very strong images. There's no single thought that has not attached itself to an image. Sometimes it's also only a thought image, of course, but in most cases it is also an image that can be looked at and that throws us back at a structural question and or thought. And the book that the catalog that we are doing is in fact quite close to the exhibition, but of course cannot benefit from two crucial things in the exhibition, very, very crucial. The moving images through which people to whom, if you're not in the thought space, sometimes it's difficult to get in, right? Seeing Kubrick's Star Child next to James Bond's rockets, Cold War rockets, immediately gets you into a certain moment, a certain milieu, a certain set of, the historical distance allows you to see things as weird that were completely normal and so on. So small alienation effects, discoveries, but also familiarities, that's what you can deal with extremely well. Also, California, crucially, is a kind of historical topos in which the image economy or the image sphere is being employed in new ways through, of course, Hollywood, and then later the entire kind of Californian lifestyle image industries, which binds together affect, design, and a certain level of, employing, like going beyond. So this was also a big counterculture goal, no? Going beyond this coercive rationality. Now, in a publication, we have to slightly move away from, since we do not have the song, you don't have the sound of "this is the end, my friend," which immediately makes you feel California and a moment, and so you have to do this slightly different, but then like through constellations of images and a slightly more abstract argument and structure, which is then of course what the exhibition does not have, namely a number of key essays that are sometimes more associative, like would say Norman Klein's essay, which is sort of written from a very implied perspective. So I'm part of this, and I'm part of also its problems, and I'm struggling with certain paradigms, or it's a very sober, precise analysis, such as Fred Turner's text written for the catalog on kind of notions of the total, the whole. Fred Turner, who's a historian of the cyberculture and has written a book called From Counterculture to Cyberculture, which was also one of the sources for some of the more novel connections that are not yet completely well known. So yes, it's for taking it home and working it out, and hopefully hopefully the book is then the opposite of the exhibition, at least in one simple sense, namely that in the exhibition you have to be enchanting and seductive, because otherwise it would not work as an exhibition. And this in the book has to be turned into a more analytic principle that would hopefully be also at points challenging and even obscure, so that it actually is something that has riddles, that needs to be solved, that one returns to. No? Books need to have a secret, because else you don't take them out of the shelf again.